I wanted to follow up on my last video on sight reading, talking about the aspect of counting. Now, as I'd mentioned, make a sight reading quiz for my students every week in this class, and I, of course, then choose the thing that they're going to sight read. I'm going to tell a little secret. Please don't tell any of my students in this class, but I often try and choose repertoire that has awkward subdivisions for counting and terrible spatial notation for counting. Yes, I am trying to throw them off. Now, I'm not trying to be cruel. What I'm trying to make sure is that they are counting. But nearly most of my quizzes in that portion of the class come from slow movements of Haydn sonatas, because they have both those things. They have awkward subdivisions, and unfortunately, they're often really awkwardly laid out in terms of the spatial notation. And what I mean by that is, so here's a slow movement from the E minor Haydn sonata, and there are some measures that are this long. Then there are some measures with a lot of notes, and they're this long. Of course, the time duration is the same, but maybe just for the layout and ease, they have made a quarter note this long, but in other places they had a series of 16 30-second notes, and it covers a large amount of space. So this is a very common problem, and I like to trip students up over this because they will fail. But hopefully they'll say, wait, count out loud, then you won't have that problem. So counting out loud or counting internally is essential. If you're basing it on spatial notation, you're going to be in big trouble. So another thing sometimes I like to do in this example has a lot of subdivisions of 16th notes, 16th note triplets, 30-second notes, 30-second note triplets. And it goes very slowly. And the way I do this is, even though it's written in 3/4, I will probably count it either in 1 and 2 and 3 and, or 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. I'd probably count it in 6, so that I can keep track of the subdivision of all the small beats. If I count it only in 3, it will be going so slow, I'm going to have a hard time feeling the consistency of that large beat. So often when I'm reading at, like, say, measure 9 here, again, if I'm counting at 6, the right hand looks a little confusing because I'm dealing with a number of 30-second notes, not normally a note value I deal with constantly. But as long as I'm counting out loud, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. As long as I count this way, I will be fine. And when I look at all those 30-second notes, it can get a little confusing, like, but the trick is to look at the left hand, because the left hand was divided into simple either quarter notes or eighth notes. Now there's a note value I can get behind, very easy to follow. If I know where those are, then I can know how everything else fits. But if I mistakenly read from the top, looking at all the subdivisions without seeing how they fit against the larger beat, then it's not going to work. Then I'm going to struggle. So, and the truth is, if I'm counting out loud, then if I make a mistake, or if I, add something or subtract something, if I'm counting out loud, then I can make up for it, and then it won't be a problem. As soon as I've lost track of that beat, or I look at the spatial notation as my guide, look at like the end here, measure 12, it's a disaster spatially, then I'm going to trip up. And if I'm accompanying somebody, and that's often where you're sight reading, then you're going to fail. So count out loud, look at the bass, subdivide.